Okay, did you do it? Well, I hope so, but if you got stuck or just want to see my solution, well, here it is. So the first thing, I will simply assign the events to the second button. So I'll go over here, click on the clear button, go to my properties and to the events. And for the event of the mouse hover, I will select the btn accept hover, and for the mouse leave, I'll accept the btn accept leave. So I'll assign the same event to this button as I did for the accept button. And we're done, right? So let's run it and see what's gonna happen. So our accept button works the same. Now I'll hover over clear button and the accept button is being triggered. So obviously this is not what we wanted. And that's because the event is not generic, but is directly assigned to the btn accept. When we have a look at it, this is an event for the btn accept button, both of these. So we need to change it so it applies for any button, so it's more generic. And for that, we will use the sender object and change the back color of the sender object. So instead of btn accept, I will do the sender. But again, we don't have the back color. But what we need to do is simply cast sender to the correct element, to the current object, which is, in this case, a button. So just like before, we will simply cast this as button. Except I should probably spell it better. So here is our object button that casts the sender as button, and now we have the color available to us. And we'll do the same for the leave event. So I'll just copy it and paste it right there. So our sender is cast as button, and now we have available the back color. So let's run it. So now accept still works, and clear now works as well, as expected. But one thing I don't like is that the event is actually called btn accept, even though it's also triggered by the btn clear. So I want to rename the event to be more generic. So let's just rename it to something like btn buttons hover, right? That's fine. So now let's go to our form, and wow, what just happened? This is definitely wrong, right? As you can see, we changed the event, but the change did not propagate through the designer. When I click over here to view the error, you can see that it still has the btn accept. It did not change the name to the btn buttons hover. So let's go back to the code and I'll revert the change. So now we should be able to view the form as well. Everything is working correctly as expected. And let's just rename it the correct way. And to do that, we'll simply use the rename functionality of the Visual Studio. I will select this and right-click it and click Rename. Alright, so you can see the little window for the rename. And all I have to do is now, before you click Apply, you actually do the renaming. So I'll rename it to btn buttons underscore hover. And now, when I click Apply, everything should work correctly. When I go to the designer, and you can see that the btn buttons hover is being used. So let's do the same for the leave. I'll select it, right click and rename, and I'll rename it to btn buttons and apply. And you can see that it renamed it in the designer as well. So I'm gonna run it just to see if everything works as before. Here's my accept button and here's my clear button. Alright, so this is done, But there's still one more thing I'd like to show you before we wrap this up, which is the initialize component method, which is the very first method over here on the top that runs when the project loads.